3 spine-chilling thunderstorm tales. Sinister secrets revealed. Cursed events exposed. The clouds rolled in over Hillcrest like a dark omen, heavy with rain and dread. 12-year-old Emma Johnson sensed it first. A low murmur beneath the usual tranquility, an unsettling whisper that made her skin crawl. The evening had promised a cozy family night, a few board games and popcorn. But that was before the storm approached, clutching shadows and secrets. As the wind howled and kicked up dust, Emma's dad, Jackson, brought in wood for the fireplace with an air of normalcy, even as thunder rumbled ominously in the distance. Her mom, Lisa, tried to settle their nerves, but Emma could see it in her face, the apprehension mirrored in every household around them. The neighborhood was alive with whispers, just under the surface of the thunder. When the first crack of lightning illuminated the darkened room, Emma gripped her favorite book tightly. She tried to focus, but the thuds from the basement echoed mockingly in her ears, rhythmic and strange. Each sharp crack against the windows sent another shiver down her spine. It was just the storm, she told herself, but deep down, she felt something more sinister lurking in those shadows. Suddenly, a blinding flash lit the room, and everything went dark. Heart pounding, she heard her mother call her name softly. Confused, Emma bolted from the living room, her feet pounding against the hallway floor. "Mom?" Panic tinged her voice, but the house was eerily empty. The sound of rain pounding echoed like a heartbeat, constant and drumming in her ears. She glanced out the window and noticed her neighbors. Mrs. Thompson from next door and Mr. Green across the street were huddled together, their voices low and urgent. Something felt wrong. Their faces, once friendly, now twisted with something darker. Emma strained to hear their hushed conversation. Snippets of words clung to her like cobwebs. Curse, betrayal, the family's what curse? Emma's heart raced as dread seeped into her thoughts like the rain outside. She had only half-heartedly listened to the stories of Hillcrest's past. Legends of spirits and vengeance had seemed so far-fetched before. But now, amidst the wind's wails and her neighbors' anxious glares, those stories twisted in her mind like a noose. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The thunder echoed like a warning. Emma thought of the trip to the History Museum last month, the tales of old betrayals and families torn apart, all stemming from the very street she lived on. She felt a chill as she began to match pieces together. This neighborhood, its history, would the storm bring out these forgotten grudges? Just then, a loud crash from the basement sent her reeling. Adrenaline pumping, she dashed up to the attic, seeking refuge, when her eyes caught a glimpse of an old journal wedged in a dusty corner. Could it hold secrets about her mother? Just as she gripped it to uncover the truth, the power flickered and died completely, plunging her into darkness. Emma felt trapped in a nightmare as silence enveloped the house. Had the storm passed? Or was it just the calm before something much worse? Panic clawed at her throat, and as she grasped the journal tighter, she realized dread lurked just outside her door. What awaited her on the other side of the threshold? What horrifying truth awaited her in Hillcrest's heart? Emma stood in the thick silence of the attic, the weight of the journal heavy in her hands. The thick dust covered her fingers, and a sickening dread coiled in her stomach. She fumbled to flick the cover open, her heart pounding with each creak of the old floor underfoot. The first page was filled with neat handwriting, but the words swam before her eyes in the dim light filtering through the cracks. "Do not trust the storm," it read. "It brings forth those who have been wronged." A shadow flickered across her vision, and she froze, straining to listen. A low rumble reverberated, not just from the storm outside, but something living, breathing, echoing in the house. The noise seemed to pulse from the basement, a distressing thudding sound intertwined with muffled cries. Emma's breath hitched. What was down there? She hesitated, torn between the journal and the ominous noise. Were those the voices of her neighbors? Or something worse? "I can't be alone," she whispered, clutching the journal tighter. Dread oozed from the pages, trickling into her mind. The stories in the attic, their whispered truths and dark secrets wove strands of terror tighter around her heart. She had believed it was just gloomy tales meant to frighten children. But what she felt now was real. The legends had come alive. With a shaking hand, Emma ripped through several pages, desperate for more. Each one detailed unbearable betrayals, cursed bloodlines, and families that had crumbled under dark forces. The blood of the families was too thick in Hillcrest. History clung to the walls, the floors, and perhaps to her own family. The thunder outside erupted, a crack of lightning hitting far too close. The light illuminated the attic for a split second, revealing a figure cloaked in shadow at the foot of the stairwell leading down to the darkness below. Panic clawed relentlessly at her mind as she stumbled back against an old trunk. Was that a trick of the light or something coming for her? Emma forced herself to breathe. "Hello?" Her voice sounded small, swallowed by the gathering gloom. Nothing. Lightning crashed again. The light flickered, a bolt of recognition hit her. The legends spoke of ancestors, restless souls clinging to the remnants of their lives and tragedies. Anger and betrayal had woven their legacies into the fabric of Hillcrest. Had their spirits come back to claim what they had lost? Another crash echoed from the basement, and she couldn't ignore it any longer. Emma scrambled to her feet, journal gripped like a holy relic. She felt the chill wrap around her, the air growing thicker as she crept closer to the stairs. Each step down felt like stepping further into a nightmare, the murmur of rain and wind drowned out by the thuds and whispers rising from below. Just as she reached for the door, the floor creaked beneath her. Emma whipped around, heart racing, to see a flickering shadowing drawing closer. Something whispered her name, soft but insistent, as if beckoning her deeper into the gloom. Was it friendly or a lure? Emma, the voice slithered through the darkness, and the journal nearly slipped from her hands. She clenched her teeth, sweat trickling down her back. What was happening? She needed to know the truth. Gathering her dwindling courage, Emma twisted the doorknob slowly, holding her breath as she pushed it open. The basement lay beyond, darkness swallowing the faint light behind her. Even deeper shadows beckoned, promising revelations, but at what cost? Was she ready to face the reality of Hillcrest's dark past, and the horrors stirred by the storm? And who was waiting for her in that suffocating blackness? As she stepped into the abyss, a chilling thought pierced her mind. Was she about to join the whispers that haunted her street? The basement door groaned as it swung open, revealing a void so deep it swallowed even the distant whispers from above. Emma grasped the railing, cold and damp, feeling a bead of sweat trace down her temple. With each shaky step into the darkness, the air around her thickened, almost sticky with unease. Emma, the voice wrapped around her like a fog, pulling her deeper. Panic raced through her veins, but curiosity gnawed at the edges of her fear. On the concrete floor, an old lantern rested, its glass cracked but still intact. She hesitated, knowing it was a beacon but also a choice to illuminate her path or further awaken the shadows. As she picked it up, a current ran through her, like a spark igniting a fire. She flicked the switch. The lantern sputtered to life, casting a flickering glow against the damp walls. For the first time, she caught sight of her surroundings. Old shelves lined with stale boxes, their contents buried under a layer of dust. And, at the far corner, a bloody smudge marred a section of the floor. Emma's heart skipped as she edged closer. The stain looked too fresh. Her breathing quickened. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, something lurking behind the shadows, lurking just beyond the reach of the light. The journal tremored in her hands as if aware. Its pages whispered secrets too ghastly to comprehend. Another deep thud echoed from somewhere within the basement, a call to her senses. "What is down here?" she muttered, feeling very much an outsider in this place that felt more foreign than her own ancestral home. The whispers grew louder, intertwined with the pounding storm. It became difficult to separate one sound from another. The storm's thunder seemed to align with the rhythmic noises, as if the house itself were breathing, alive, aware. A chill slithered up Emma's spine. What if the voices were warning her? Maybe she shouldn't delve deeper into the blood-soaked history of Hillcrest after all. But now, standing in the basement, she felt the urgency to confront whatever evil had rooted itself here. The voice returned, more insistent, echoing around the room. "Find us, release us." Emma pressed a hand against her forehead, wishing the unsettled sensation away. She couldn't leave just yet. She needed to understand what was driven by that voice. Clenching the journal tighter, she chose a path through the darkness towards the source of the thudding. As she moved cautiously, the floorboards creaked like bones straining under the weight of years. Shivers rushed down her arms. Images flashed in her mind, flickering just beyond grasp. Families torn apart, souls crying for justice. At last, she came to a door, its surface warped by age, held shut by tarnished chains that glinted ominously in the lantern's light. She could hear soft sobbing from within, mingling with the storm sounds. Heart hammering, she fell to her knees, her hands trembling as she reached for the chains. Her instincts screamed at her to stop, to run. But she couldn't. Not now. She had to know who was inside. Her fingers wrapped around the cold, metallic links, ready to pull. With one hard yank, the chains snapped, falling away with a final clatter that seemed to echo into the abyss. The door creaked open, and she gasped at the darkness spilling forth, heavier than what lay beyond her lantern. What have I done? The thought slipped through her mind, already feeling the weight of her decision settle on her shoulders. As she pushed the door wider, a figure lurked just inside, shrouded in darkness. The sobbing stopped, and an uneasy silence replaced it, filled only by the low rumble of thunder reminding her of the storm above. Emma stumbled back, heart racing, the lantern flickering as she faced the unknown. Had she unleashed something best left buried? "What do you want?" she managed, voice trembling, as shadows coalesced into shape before her. A response echoed back, distant yet resolute. "You sought the truth, now you shall bear the cost." Whatever truth awaited her, she realized all too late that she might not be ready to face. The storm outside raged on, as heavy rain intertwined with a new, darker reality creeping from within. And as the figure stepped closer, Emma's world lined up for a reckoning she never saw coming. What awaited her as the shadows stretched and swelled? And was the storm merely a cover for the horrors now unleashed? The figure emerged like a nightmare given form, its features obscured by the thick darkness that clung to it like a shroud. Emma could hardly breathe as fear clutched her throat. The air was saturated, heavy with something rancid and overwhelming. She squinted, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. "Show yourself," she demanded, her voice barely above a whisper, trembling with every word. Yet even as she spoke, her legs felt rooted in place, unable to move. With a slow, deliberate motion, the figure took a step into the light, revealing ghostly pale skin stretched taut over bones that seemed to end just beyond sight. Its eyes were sunken deep, swirling pools of darkness that drew Emma in, a mesmerizing horror piercing her resolve. "You've disturbed a resting place." Child Emma's heartbeat drummed loudly in her ears as she staggered back, colliding painfully with the door frame. "I didn't mean to." The truth tasted bitter on her tongue as desperation washed over her. "I just wanted to understand." The figure's lips twisted into a haunting smile. "Understanding can cost you more than you know." It raised a skeletal finger, pointing toward the wall behind Emma, where shadows danced erratically. "See?" In the flickering light, the shadows coalesced into shapes, ghastly forms that writhed like a swarm of serpents. Emma felt their cold grip creeping against her skin, sending icy tendrils through her spine. She squinted harder, and the shapes morphed into scenes, terrible visions of torment and despair. A family flew apart in chaos, screams echoing into nothingness. A child, face streaked with tears, reaching for a parent who was nothing more than a shadow. Wails filled the room, an anguished choir that echoed through the damp basement. Emma clamped her hands over her ears, but the cries pierced through, relentless. "Stop! Please stop!" she screamed, desperation breaking her voice. But the figure stepped closer, undeterred, confusion and sorrow mingling on its ghostly face. "Your truth is tied to their suffering," it hissed, the words slithering out like wisps of smoke. "You will learn the cost of your ignorance." The lantern flickered, illuminating the dark corners where whispers lurked. Emma's heart raced as she fought against the urge to flee. "What do I have to do?" she gasped, feeling the heavy weight of dread settle in her gut. "Choose." The voice now rang clear, an icy whisper that surrounded her. "To turn and run, or to venture into the depths and discover what binds you to this place." The shadows receded slightly, as if waiting for her answer. An instinct screamed for her to run back to the surface, to escape the grasp of whatever awaited her here. But curiosity and an unyielding need for resolution pulled her back. "I'll go deeper," she whispered. The words barely escaped her lips, but the moment they did, she felt the ground shift beneath her. Every fear she harbored rushed forward, intertwining with a strange resolve. A chill swept through her as the figure extended its hand, the air crackling around them with an untold magic. "Then we will journey together." Just as Emma stepped forward, the lights in the lantern flickered violently, plunging her into darkness. She stumbled, reaching for sanity, but the ground beneath her vanished. The world folded in upon itself, pulling her into an abyss of echoes and screams. As her vision swirled, the last thing she caught sight of was the specter's empty gaze, watching her fall into an unfathomable truth. What lay beyond the darkness? And would she emerge with answers or face horrors even beyond her imagination? Emma landed hard on cold, unforgiving ground. The biting chill cut through her clothes, a bone-deep frost that left her breathless. She gasped, her hands running against the gritty floor as panic surged. "Where am I?" she thought, the question echoing in her muddled mind. Above her, the darkness pulsated like a living thing, a suffocating blanket. There were no walls, no ceiling, just an endless expanse of void. She scrambled to her feet, heart racing, visions of the figure invading her mind. Memories flickered, fragmented and distorted, like old film reels struggling to play. A voice shrieked from the void, "Emma!" She whirled around, but only shadows greeted her. Chills danced down her spine. Had she truly heard her name? Or was it just a figment of her frantic imagination? The lantern's warmth seemed a world away, a light lost beneath the waves of darkness. "Your journey begins here." The whisper twisted around her, emanating from all directions. Emma clenched her teeth, the urge to scream clawing at her throat. "Stop! Show yourself!" she shouted into the emptiness, desperation clawing as she fought to keep her composure. The shadows began to swirl, coalescing into shapes that whispered secrets she couldn't grasp. Images flickered, a house engulfed in flames, a figure standing amidst the conflagration, red eyes glaring, a sibling's laughter silenced by a crack, a father's hollow gaze in pictures now smudged with time. The cold tendrils returned, wrapping around her wrists, yanking her closer to another reality. Emma gasped, visions pouring into her mind like a rush of water unleashed from a dam. Origins of fear seeped into her consciousness, voices overlapping each other in a symphony of despair. "Know the truth, Emma, no!" she shrieked, trying to shield herself from the onslaught of torment. The shadows were relentless, pulling her deeper into memories not entirely her own, an unbearable weight of sorrow and regret. She saw faces each racked with anguish, a lineage tangled in a web of dark decisions. With a sudden clarity, the threads connecting her to this place tightened, drawing her toward the specter she'd encountered. "Your lineage is cursed, child." The voice resonated from deep within the shadows. "Feel its weight." Gritting her teeth, Emma fought back, attempting to repel their pull. "No, I refuse. This I sentimi." But her voice faltered. What if it was? What if the darkness she felt within had manifested here? Gripping her head, she tried to banish the thoughts swirling like a storm, but they crashed over her in waves, relentless as the tide. Memories twisted around her, revealing a moment of desperation that wasn't her own, the choice made, the sacrifice given. Emma's stomach churned. She tried to consider what this meant, but the storm inside her raged, drowning out reason. "Do you wish to break the curse?" the voice asked almost tenderly. "Break the curse?" she echoed, her voice trembling. "Yes, but at what cost?" The darkness pulsed, weaving around her like a serpent preparing to strike. Emma could feel the weight of 1,000 sorrows resting on her shoulders. Each breath drew forth visions, loss and despair intermingling with a flicker of hope. A family pulled back together, but their faces haunted, remnant souls held captive. Desperation clawed at her heart as she took a step forward, heart hammering in her chest. "I'll do it," she said with newfound determination. "I'll break it." And in that moment, the shadows erupted, spilling forth images of her fate, crimson paths winding before her. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. The abyss trembled like a living thing, and blinding light flared around her. Emma was thrown back, her body twisting in the current of reality as she plummeted, deeper still, not into light, but into an unknown where shadows writhed and secrets waited to devour. What awaited her in this new void? Would she be the savior or the damned? The world whipped around Emma like a tornado of darkness and light, and she felt the weight of time collapsing into itself. The sensation was dizzying, a mix of fear and anticipation that pooled heavily in her stomach. She landed with a thud on soft earth, warmth clashing against the relentless chill that had enveloped her moments before. Dazed, she pushed herself up, glancing around. She found herself in a clearing surrounded by twisted trees. Their limbs reached like gnarled hands into the sky, long shards of bark peeling and splintering beneath layers of moss. Shadows lurked among the roots, coiling and shifting, waiting for the right moment to surge forward. "Emma!" The voice was softer now, dripping with an unsettling familiarity. "Show yourself!" she shouted, her voice almost a growl, fueled by raw, nervous anger. But the only response was the soft rustle of leaves, whispering secrets just out of reach. Her pulse raced. Memories still clung to her like cobwebs, reminding her of the figure from before. What did it want? What was it trying to teach her? Grabbing a nearby stick, she held it like a weapon, something to ground her in an ever-wobbling reality. "Face it. You can't hide," she screamed into the murky shadows, stepping forward. The air thickened, and she felt the oppressive weight growing heavier as she ventured deeper into the clearing. Then she saw it, a flicker of light between the trees, almost like a beacon. Her instincts screamed at her to turn back. Every rational thought urged retreat. But the need to know overcame fear. Heart racing, she sprinted toward the glimmer, weaving through branches and over thick roots that threatened to trip her. When she reached the light, a small, old lantern hung from a crooked branch. It flickered with a soft flame, illuminating the deceptive serenity of the clearing. But as Emma approached, the air shifted, turning thick and suffocating, and the flame sputtered like a dying breath. "Emma!" This time, the voice carried a note of despair, wrapping around her like chains. She gritted her teeth, forcing herself to stand tall. "What do you want?" she demanded. "Your truth." The shadows answered in an eerie harmony, weaving around her ankles. "Accept the legacy you bear." Confusion churned within as shadows flickered at the edges of her vision. The air began to spark with tension, moments of clarity slipping into chaos. She saw glimpses of her family, their faces distorted, mouths opening in silent screams, each image spiraling into a vortex of emotions so intense that she staggered back. Hot, angry tears streamed down her face. "No, this is all wrong," she cried. "I'm not like them. Inescapable. Your blood binds you to this fate," they whispered, the last syllables curling into laughter, cruel and mocking. But in the back of her mind, doubt began to bloom, a seed planted by the shadows, feeding on her deepest fears. What if they were right? A kernel of truth emerged. She had always felt different, the odd one out. The mistakes of the past haunted her. Shadows cast long across her every step. No, she shouted, shaking her head as if to rid herself of the clutches of despair. I can change this. The lantern extinguished, plunging the clearing into darkness. Emma felt herself pulled, twisted, toward the void once more. The oppressive weight of shadows pressed upon her, threatening to envelop her entirely. She fought, clawing to escape the grasping hands. And just when she thought darkness would swallow her whole, a thunderous crack echoed through the clearing, splitting the ground beneath her. The earth trembled, and Emma stumbled, teetering on the edge of an unseen chasm. Would she plummet into the abyss below or find a way to ascend? As she teetered, she glimpsed something lurking in the depths, a reflection of herself, twisted and distorted. The truth winked at her, daring her to see. Before she could react, the shadows surged, and the ground fell away beneath her feet. In an instant, Emma was falling, swallowed whole by darkness. What awaited her below? Would the truth be her salvation, or the root of her damnation? And deeper still, who was that familiar figure lurking within the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? Emma's descent felt endless, a heart-stopping drop through a murky void. The shadows thickened around her, holding her captive in their suffocating embrace. Gasping for breath, she felt the pull of despair gripping at her heart. Suddenly, she landed not with a jolt, but in a cold, damp silence that wrapped around her like a shroud. She pushed herself up, shadows retreating just enough to reveal her surroundings. She was in a cave, the walls glistening with moisture, each droplet echoing in the eerie stillness. The ground beneath her was uneven, littered with rocks and remnants of long-forgotten things. As she moved deeper into the cave, the air grew sharper, tinged with a resemblance of something familiar yet foreboding. And then she heard it, the hushed whispers of her name, an echo that filled the entire space with weight. Emma, come closer, she shivered, not from the cold, but from a primal fear that resonated in her very core. The voice was unmistakable, a blend of temptation and threat. It called to her, coaxing her to seek out its owner. It was the same voice she had heard in the clearing, taunting and distressing, as if it lingered in her thoughts. Taking tentative steps forward, she began to see shapes within the shadows, figures emerging from the darkness. Their faces were indistinguishable, yet their eyes shone with a haunting familiarity. Memories stirred like violent waves crashing within her, each wave reminding her of beginnings she wished to forget. "Why have you brought me here?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "What do you want from me?" The truth, the echo reverberated, echoing against the stone walls. "You must accept who you truly are." She instinctively stepped back, her heart racing. "I don't belong here." But the figures merely shifted, an unsettling blend of sympathy and triumph etched across their ghostly faces. They reached out, fingers elongated, translucent tendrils curling as if to pull her closer. "Your lineage binds you to this curse," they murmured. "You cannot escape your blood." "Shut up. You don't know me," Emma shouted, desperation spilling over into anger. Yet, as the words left her lips, she felt a crack in her bravado. What if they were right? What if this was a manifestation of her darkest fears? She had always sensed a storm brewing beneath her surface, a tempest of emotions and dark secrets that roiled just out of sight. "Embrace it," they chorused, their voices merging into a haunting melody. "Only then can you break free." Emma staggered, gripping the damp wall for support. She could feel the pull intensifying, whispering that maybe, just maybe, there was truth in what they said. The shadows flickered, revealing glimpses of her past, the moments she tried to erase, the faces she tried to forget. But each memory came with a heavy toll. They pushed her down, harder and faster, forcing her to confront the darkest corners of herself. Terror gripped her. "No, I refuse." With a roar, she turned and ran, racing through the twisting tunnels, hoping to escape the relentless tide of shadows and memories. But the cave seemed an infinite maze, and with each step, the whispers grew louder. She pressed on, driven by sheer will, until she reached a wider chamber. There, among the rocks, was a peculiar glint, a mirror, oddly untouched by the decay of the cave. Its surface shimmered, reflecting not just her face but all those fractured truths she feared to face. "Look," the shadows urged, their voices rising to a fever pitch. "See what you are." Emma hesitated, her breath hitching. To look was to confront her true self, to expose everything she had buried deep. What would she find staring back at her? Would it be a monster? A coward? Or something she feared even more, her true strength? With shaking hands, she stepped closer to the mirror, dreading what would be revealed. And in that moment, the ground beneath her seemed to tremble once again. The voices began to crescendo, a chorus of taunting laughter filling the air, and the cave walls began to close in. What awaited her on the other side of that mirror? Did she dare to find out, or would she be lost to the coming darkness forever? And as the shadows crept closer, Emma felt the weight of choice pressing down on her. Would she plunge into the unknown, or run back into the consuming night? Emma's pulse thrummed loudly in her ears, drowning out the cacophony of the shadows surrounding her. The mirror glowed ominously, beckoning her closer, as its surface rippled with a strange energy. She was terrified but felt an undeniable pull to it, an urge she couldn't ignore, like a moth caught in the dizzying warmth of an open flame. "Look inside," the voices sang in unison, eerily melodic, transforming the air into a suffocating blanket. Gulping down her fear, she reached out, fingers trembling, brushing against the mirror's cold surface. A jolt shot through her, a current that ignited every nerve, sending panic spikes down her spine. But curiosity thrummed alongside her dread, urging her to peer deeper. As she leaned in, the reflection warped. The image twisted until her face morphed into something grotesque. Dark veins crisscrossed her skin. Eyes burned with a fiery rage. Was this her true self? A sharp gasp caught in her throat, a painful reminder that she wasn't just running from the shadows, but from an ugliness buried deep within. "No, this isn't me." The words burst from her lips, laced with desperation. But the mirror seemed to pulse with her denial, feeding on it, growing brighter and more alluring. "Accept it," the shadows whispered, their fingers brushing against her, coaxing, tugging. "You are stronger than you think. Embrace the storm." She stumbled back, fear bubbling inside her, mingling with the dark allure of power offered by the shadowy chorus. Her mind raced. Strong? What did that mean for a girl who spent her life in the background, who had always felt like a ghost? What if the darkness they offered could finally give her a voice? With a shudder of resolve, she reached for the mirror again. This time, she leaned in closer. The chill radiating against her face became a heat of challenge. "Show me," she shouted, a defiance igniting within her. The surface rippled violently as the shadows shrieked in joy, their laughter echoing off the cave walls. Suddenly, a flash of images raced through her mind, people she had lost, choices she had made, betrayals she de-witnessed. Each memory like a dagger, sharp and unforgiving. She saw an explosion of wrath as her past self stood on the precipice of hatred, on a night that changed everything. A shadowy figure filled her mind, the one she had run from all her life. Was this the truth she needed to face? Suddenly Emma's breath caught. Was that her mother's face among the specters? Lost to time, drowned in the chaos of her life. "Your mother's legacy lives in you." The shadows grew bolder, their voices blending into a thunderous roar that shook the cave. "The strength, the darkness. Embrace it." "No," Emma cried, but her voice quivered, wavered against the echoing chaos. "I want to become her." But it felt like they were winning. Each heartbeat seemed to synchronize with the whispering, a hypnotic rhythm drawing her deeper. The mirror began to crack, lines splintering like her resolve. What if she had been wrong? What if the darkness was not something to fear but a part of her she could wield? With a primal scream, she finally smashed her palm against the glass. A searing pain shot through her hand, but it was drowned out by the fascination that ignited in her chest. The cracks pulsed, growing wider, and glimmers of a storm beckoned from within. Just as her reflection swirled into a kaleidoscope of possibilities, Emma felt the ground lurch beneath her, dislodging the tremors holding the cave together. The walls began to crumble, ominously closing in on her. "Make your choice, Emma. Step into the storm." The shadows wailed, their words crackling like lightning above the deafening roar. But time was running out. In that moment of chaos, Emma had to choose. Face the storm within or be crushed by it. Would she take that terrifying step forward or succumb to the depths of despair? And as a deep rumble echoed from the cave's bowels, a new whisper emerged amid the chaos, cold and taunting. "Perhaps you can run, but there is someone worse waiting for you above." Fear clutched her heart tighter. Would the nightmare above be the end of her, or was it the beginning? The ground shook violently beneath Emma's feet, a tremor that felt like the heartbeat of something ancient, malevolent. The shadows roared, their laughter twisting into something more sinister, reverberating off the jagged walls of the cave. Each laugh sent shards of ice through her veins, drowning her in a dread she struggled to breathe against. "Choose!" the shadows shrieked, their voices blending into a deafening chorus, "either succumb or ascend." With the cracks in the mirror widening, Emma's mind raced. Out there, she was merely a shadow. But in here, within this storm, she could be something more, something feared. Yet, was power truly worth the price? She could feel splinters of raw energy penetrated her being, and for a flicker of a moment, it was tempting. "Let go of the past, Emma," cried the voice of her mother, resonating plainly in her mind. But was it really her, or just another trick to lure her deeper into the web of shadows? The memory flickered like a dying fire, but Emma remembered the warmth, the love, and the lessons learned in those fleeting moments. "No!" she screamed, fighting against the tide of darkness. She turned toward the mirror, steeling her resolve. If power was the price for facing her fears, so be it. She could shape that power, make it her own. As the shadows reached for her, tendrils of corruption danced dangerously close. She backed away, uncertain. The cave voiced its warning through the creaking rock, a primal sense that something dark was emerging. On the cusp of retreat, her heart clenched with panic. "Don't you want to know what you're capable of?" The shadows slithered closer, sultry and enticing. "Face your true self." Emma faltered as visions invaded her mind again. She saw herself as a figure of fear, commanding the very shadows that sought to devour her. She saw herself standing triumphantly over her deepest scars. But another image surfaced, one of haunting despair. Her child lost amid chaos, their cries drowned in shadows. The mothers of the world, the sacrifices made. Power had its price, but was it too high to pay? The ground quaked again, and she was suddenly forced forward, her foot slipping. Panic coursed, and she grasped the jagged edge of the mirror for support. The strange energy surged, pulling her breathlessly closer to the glass, to the storm beyond. Then, she saw it in the depths of the mirror, the figure from the dark of her past, lurking just beyond the shards. Its face was indistinguishable, but she could feel its hunger, an appetite for despair that was intoxicating. It was a reflection of everything she feared, but also everything she could become if she dared to embrace it. Just when she thought it was too much to bear, the shimmering fragment of hope flared in her heart. "I have more to fight for," she whispered fiercely, finding strength in her defiance. "You will not control me." The shadows recoiled, sudden rage echoing through the cave. But Emma felt the ground beneath open up, a dark portal twisting with storm and fury, beckoning her into its mouth. She stumbled, nearly losing her footing as she fought against the temptation to be swallowed whole by the shadows or to step willingly into the storm. "Above, you're still hunted," a whisper teased, sharper than a dagger. "They have waited far too long for your return." The air thickened, merging dread and determination within her. Breathless, she felt the reality of her choices strangle her resolve, to stand and fight, or descend into the unknown. As the tempest howled, threatening to consume everything she had ever known, Emma closed her eyes, a choice shimmering before her like a star, challenged by the void. And just as darkness began to engulf her, she heard that voice again, cold and taunting, clear as day. "They're coming for you." Would she confront the monsters above or be consumed in the battle below? The storm roared, pulling her into the terrifying embrace of uncertainty. In that moment of storm and shadow, Emma had to decide who she truly wanted to be before it was too late. Emma stood at the abyss, the swirling storm of shadows beckoning her to step into the unknown. But every heartbeat reminded her of the warmth drawing her back. The thought of her mother's love clung like a lifeline amidst the chaos. Gathering her courage, she inhaled deeply, allowing that comforting memory to anchor her. "I won't lose myself," she murmured, fists clenched, determination surging through her veins. The shadows writhed angrily, their whispers turning into a shriek echoing off the cave walls. "Run, hide. You cannot resist the truth." But Emma denied their claims, defiance welling within her. "I am not afraid of the truth," she declared, her voice piercing through the hollow cries and gusting winds. "I will shape my own destiny." With that declaration, she stepped forward, refusing to succumb to their fear. The chaos outside was nothing compared to the tempest within, and she chose the path illuminated by her battle to embrace what was essential and sacred. Emma felt the warmth of her emotions swell, transforming into something tangible, a power not born of despair, but from hope. The light within her flared brighter as she reached out, feeling the glass of the mirror cool against her palm. Images flooded her mind, her family, laughter, love, and the whispers of betrayal that had haunted her. Each one woven tightly, forming a tapestry of resilience rather than loss. As she met her reflection, the storm of emotions surged, forcing the shattered glass back together, mending the fractures with an incandescent glow. The whispers turned to screeches as darkness receded, knowing they would be vanquished. "No, you belong to us," they begged, but Emma's heart echoed loudly, drowning them out. "Yes, I belong to me," she roared, feeling the power of her heritage pulse through her. The cave rocked, surrendering to her growing strength, shadows paling with every breath she took. Those haunting faces were not just her shadows. They were her ancestors calling for understanding, not vengeance. The truth held clarity. She lunged forward into the portal, an unbreakable sense of purpose driving her toward the chance to rewrite her family's legacy. Just then, the echo of thunder rippled through the cave, shaking its very foundation. As she fell, she felt weightless, liberated from all that had bound her, from the fear that might have controlled her life. The storm above raged fiercely, she could hear the wind howling, anger unleashed, but she welcomed it now. With a brilliant flash, she was hurled through broken chains, soaring upward through an embrace of white light, churning clouds, and turbulence. Then everything calmed. Emma gasped for air as she found herself standing on familiar ground, the yard of her home shimmering under the stormy sky above. The rain poured down in sheets as she looked around, drenched but victorious. The storm was raging, but she felt powerful, unyielding, a calm stoicism echoing within her as the winds howled, almost serenading the fight she had waged. Her parents appeared in the doorway, worry etched on their faces. But when they saw her, the fear melted into joy. "Emma!" her mother cried, rushing forward and wrapping her in a tight embrace. "I'm okay," she whispered, squeezing her eyes shut, letting tears mix with the rain. "I faced it, Mom. I'm free." As the storm rumbled on, the neighbors emerged, confusion mingled with relief as they witnessed a flicker of hope. The weight of darkness that had haunted Hillcrest for generations began to lift, vaporizing like the fog in the morning sun. Emma had faced the past and redefined her future, the curse broken, a new path illuminated. In that moment, a bond connected them all. Emma realized families didn't have to fall apart. They could also rise and learn. Love could flourish in the shadow of darkness. And as the clouds drifted away, revealing a sliver of sunlight, she felt an overwhelming sense of belonging in the world she had once felt alienated from. Emma turned to her parents, her smile brightening the stormy evening. "We'll face whatever comes next together." The weight of the shadows lifted, carried away by the wind. Standing united, they could embrace all that the universe held: love, hope, and resilience. This was their moment, and she had just begun to rise above, whole and unshackled. Emma smiled up at the clearing sky, knowing this was not just the end of a storm, but the beginning of something beautiful. To everyone watching, I'm begging you, this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will chill your spine and tug at your heart. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. It really matters. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this electrifying ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to support this channel only true fans truly understand.